A new fire has broken out in the Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles, threatening landmarks like the Dolby Theatre, where the Oscar ceremony is to be held in just a few weeks. Authorities have ordered evacuations for thousands of people. Firefighters are so far unable to contain several blazes raging across the Los Angeles area. At least 5 people have died and more than 1,000 buildings have been destroyed.
Home after home consumed by flames. Fierce winds have been propelling the inferno. Here in Altadena, controlling the blazes has been near impossible.
I've lived in this area for over 20 years, and we've seen fires in the mountains and the hills and that, but never anything like this.
Whole neighborhoods are being incinerated. Some residents have been returning to the charred ruins of their former homes.
Here was our home with my sisters, and we've lost practically everything. The flames have consumed years of dreams here. Everything here has turned to ashes.
From the air, a wider view of the scale of the disaster. Smoke stretching off for hundreds of kilometers. And from space, satellite imagery captured the 2 biggest blazes, the Palisades and Eaton fires. Neighboring states are sending resources to help. President Biden promised a strong federal response as he met with California's governor and other top state officials.
We're prepared to do anything and everything as long as it takes to contain these fires and help reconstruct and make sure that we get back to normal. It's going to be a hell of a long way. It's going to take time. But we're in it. The federal government is here to stay as long as you need us and everything you need.
More than 100,000 people are under evacuation orders. Forecasters say calmer winds could help firefighting efforts in the coming days. But as the blazes rage out of control, the extreme risk to life and property will remain.
And we can now speak to DW reporter Stefan Simons, who is in Los Angeles. Stefan, I understand that you're on the edge of what's being called the Sunset Fire near the Hollywood Hills. Describe the situation there for us.
Well, you're absolutely right. This is where we are, Sunset Fire, Hollywood Hills, very posh neighborhood, very affluent area here, of course, Hollywood Hills. And those folks here right behind me were the last ones who were hit by evacuation orders. And we asked law enforcement here, pretty much everybody left here. Why? Because of the fire, which is going on actually on the other side of the hill. It's growing and it's not under control. It's 0% contained, yet it's the latest blaze popping up in and around Los Angeles. The biggest still is the Palisades fire. The winds were picking up about an hour ago, now died down a little bit here, and that is a good sign. Why? Because you can see it, but maybe you can hear it. There are helicopters up in the air. Now, those are spotters. They are not the helicopters which dump a lot of water, but it's a good sign. Wind dying down, air assets for the firefighters in the air, and that means they can actually combat, effectively fight fire, which they couldn't in the last 24 to 48 hours at all.
Well, as we've been saying, there are multiple fires burning simultaneously, and earlier you sent us some footage from the Eaton fire, which is near Pasadena. What was going on there?
Well, it's a scene of destruction, really, chaotic destruction. It's I wouldn't describe it as a war zone or apocalyptic, but the destruction is really immense, very, very, very big and significant. Churches gone, synagogues gone, temples gone, businesses gone, homes gone. A lot of people came back to destroyed neighborhoods, entire neighborhoods gone, wiped off the earth, basically, burnt down to ashes. And that is hard for those people. This fire, the Eaton fire, was the second biggest. It's now starting to be contained, 10, 20% maybe. But, you know, a long way to go for the fire department here in LA, as well as Cal Fire, the state firefighters here. And anybody else who is fighting this fire. That's why it's all hands on decks. The fire chief here of LA, as well as the mayor of Los Angeles, as well the governor of California, said anybody who has firefighting experience, please get your jelly jackets back on. Come here, help us. We're in trouble. There's 5 big fires hassling us here in LA. And this is, as you know, LA. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of sites, movie production, and a lot of people live here.
Well, you said it yourself. Some of the fires are 0% contained, according to officials. So how exactly are firefighters going to be able to bring them under control?
The only chance is when nature helps. And how is it helping? By dying down those Santa Ana winds. Just 24 hours ago, those winds packed 100 miles per hour, tornado-strong gusts. That is amazing. Now, I would say we're at like between 30 and 40 miles per hour at times. That is still not great, but as I said, you hear sometimes helicopters in the air, and now the fire departments here and the firefighters will start to use those air assets, and they are critical to dump huge amounts of fire retardant and water on fires which pop up again and again, and to really give them basically the death penalty to those fires. And you can only do this if you have those air assets, if you have fixed-wing airplanes and helicopters who can really douse those flames with just boots on the ground. It doesn't matter how many firefighters or hotshots groups you put on the ground, you cannot win this fight if the Santa Ana winds blowing, as they do now a little bit, and have those fires jump from place to place, uncontrollable. You can only take a defensive measure there and step way back and let the fire do what the fire does, burning things down. That's what nobody wants here, of course. That's why the winds have to die down, the planes have to, and the helicopters have to go in the air, and then LA has a good chance here to combat that fire soon.
And Stefan, I want to ask you about the thousands of people who've been told to evacuate. Where are they taking shelter?
Yeah, that's a growing problem because, you know, of course, shelters are organized for them in schools, in safe places by the city government here, by city officials and the state. So there is effort to really have those people be provided with a safe place. But, you know, those safe places, those shelter places have to be built up. They have to be organized, and that's what the city is actually doing right now. So it's not all smooth and hunky-dory here. A lot of people are in a lot of hurt for that reason. It's really cumbersome. They don't have necessarily anywhere to go, so they rely on friends and relatives, you know, to find a place for the night or maybe for 2 nights if they can't find an official shelter. But those shelters are there, and they will be increasing in numbers in the next few hours, next few days, until the situation is solved.
That was DW's Stefan Simons in Los Angeles for us. Stefan, thanks for your reporting. We appreciate it, and please do stay safe. Well, a short time ago, we spoke to John Hinen, who lives in the Los Angeles suburb of Altadena and was forced to evacuate from those fires.
Sure. So last night, when the fire started about dinner time, my son and I went out to the fire line, which was at a canyon very close to where we live. And the fire burned through the evening, and I went back to my home in the middle of the night. But in the morning when I woke up, I had now seen the devastation through the neighborhood. And this is a very historic neighborhood at the base of the San Gabriel Mountains in Los Angeles. These homes are well over 100 years old. And so now you're seeing these hundreds of homes that have been devastated in the immediate area. But the fires are continuing. And so this is actually the problem, is that many homes are on fire, and because of the big winds that are ongoing from the previous few days, it's jumping from house to house, and so it's still very dangerous. And so the evening was really going through the mountains, which are at the front of the canyon, but now all of the homes are threatened. And so the wave is going from the west to the east because of the winds, and so I decided now that my home would be threatened, and I came down to Orange County to stay with relatives.
Well, wildfires have become more frequent outside the regular fire season in Southern California. We asked meteorologist Matthew Kuchi why these fires are causing so much destruction.
In Southern California, Fires are part of the landscape. Fires are part of the ecosystem. It happens every few years. But when you start building bigger and bigger and bigger cities, you're going to have more potential for damage, loss, and casualties. In this case, however, you have very densely packed neighborhoods with no real breaks for a fire to stop at. And so in situations like this, it's easier for the fire to run all the way down the foothills and potentially to the ocean. Until this is either contained or burns to the ocean, I don't really see much of an end in sight, given there aren't really many natural barriers here. One other point, you mentioned moments ago that January is not typically when we see these fires. You're exactly right. We ordinarily would see them until about maybe October or November, by which point the winter rains would start to arrive, and come December, fire season should be over. That's not really the case. We just haven't really seen any arrival of the winter rains. It's been so incredibly dry over the past few months. We've seen less than a quarter of the typical rainfall. And so in the wintertime, when we get these strong wind events and the landscape's a tinderbox, you get big time fires like this that are more typical of peak fire season.